messages, though, for the Cubans for Trump. Actually, for all Latinos for Trump. The Supreme Court just revoked the legal status of 500,000 people from like Cuba, Haiti, Venezuela, I think, and then somewhere else. So you guys better start packing your shit, because they're coming after you. They don't care that you voted for them. They never cared about you in the first place, dog. We tried to tell you this shit, but you didn't listen. So now they're coming after you. Supreme Court just ruled on it. You guys better start packing, because they're going to either leave on your own terms now at this point, or they're going to come after you. You guys are in danger. And you voted for it. That's the crazy part.
The Supreme Court has now allowed the Department of Homeland Security to continue with the expedited removals and deportations of about 500,000 Cuban, Haitian, Nicaraguan, and Venezuelans that entered the United States between 2021 and 2023 through the humanitarian parole program. The Supreme Court is allowing the Department of Homeland Security to proceed with this while the case is being litigated in federal court. Between 2021 and 2023, the Biden administration allowed more than 500,000 people from these four countries to bypass the visa vetting program and enter the United States through a parole. Means they got a sponsor in the United States, uploaded some financials, and then these people were allowed to just come to the United States. There was a lot of fraud involved. Even the Biden administration shut it down, but then reopened it. And a lot of people have been able to enter. They were able to come for a 2-year period and even get a work permit. In January, Trump issued an executive order telling the Department of Homeland Security to terminate this program. DHS Secretary Noem went ahead and terminated it in March, and then the lawsuit was brought up in April from the recipients of the parole program, along with their sponsors, to fight the lawsuit, saying that they need to continue with their 2 years here in the United States and they just can't be uprooted like this. So the federal judge went ahead and agreed with them and said every case needs to be examined to determine whether or not they should be subject to expedited removal, and they still need to wait out their 2-year period in the United States. This went back and forth. Now it went in front of the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, no, DHS, you can continue with your expedited removals and deport these people while it's going on in federal court. And if it comes back again in front of the Supreme Court, then we'll decide it then. But for now, DHS can continue doing what they set out to do back in March.
Hey y'all, got some big news and a win for the Trump administration. The Supreme Court allows the Trump administration to revoke the Biden-era migrant program. What this means is that Haitians, Cubans, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans who were granted temporary parole under the program known as CHNV will lose their temporary legal status to be in the U.S., and they can potentially be deported while their case continues to play out in the lower courts. This could potentially affect nearly 500,000 non-citizens. The program that the Trump administration is revoking was put in place by none other than the Biden administration in 2021 and then again in 2023. Before you start with the comments, I'm not happy about it. I'm just a naturally happy person who smiles a lot. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. I hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. God bless you.
A Cuban mother has been deported from the United States despite being married to a U.S. citizen. And they also have a daughter, and she's only 1 year old. And she was also born in the United States. The woman's name is Haiti Sanchez Tejeda, and it's been confirmed that today in the morning, she arrived on a flight full of other people that were deported into Cuba. Haiti had arrived to the United States about, give or take, 5 years ago. And in those 5 years, she was living in the United States, worry free and living life. She had a problem where she couldn't apply for asylum. A lot of people in the comments were saying, how was she here for 5 years? You got to keep in mind, Joe Biden had no problem with immigrants. But now that Donald Trump is in office and he doesn't want no immigrants in the United States, Haiti went to her first meeting for immigration. She went with confidence, but the Donald Trump administration said, hey, they detained her and deported her back to Cuba. And this morning, she was put on a flight and arrived in Cuba. Let me know what you guys think about this down below in the comments. And like always, don't forget to follow for more viral news. Ciao, pescado.
Hey guys, so the Supreme Court has now allowed the Trump administration to revoke TPS from Cubans, Venezuela, people from Nicaragua, and people from Haiti. Biden did give people from Ukraine in 2022 a TPS, protective humanitarian access. I don't see that being an issue with the Trump administration. So that means that people who were protected under TPS, which is temporary protective status, are now at risk of possible deportation. That means that the work permit that they have, they will now lose it officially, and they will no longer be legally able to work in the United States. When your TPS is officially gone, you immediately become deportable. That means once you lose your employment authorization status, that means that employers will have to terminate those individuals who once had the work authorization to work under TPS. This will cause worldwide hardship, economic hardship, and will definitely bring the unemployment increase percentage up due to the fact that most individuals working under TPS will no longer have those occupations, no longer. Many people under TPS, under the temporary protected status, have U.S. citizen children. So now you're dealing with a situation where family will be dealing with separation, with the possibility of parents going and being ordered deported back to their original country. There are some other legal options that can probably assist with individuals who have TPS. If you have a U.S. citizen spouse, if you have a eligible asylum and withholding application that could probably go through the courts and be granted. And if you at least lived in the United States for at least 10 years, don't have a criminal record, you can probably qualify for cancellation of removal. If you are married to a U.S. citizen spouse, have U.S. citizen children, those are some elements. And then you can also prove hardship, extreme hardship pertaining to those elements. This is a very, very, very new decision that's been made. I don't know what the Trump administration is going to do with this. Granted, I'm sure they're going to start possibly canceling TPS for all individuals who are in this category, and it's so unfortunate. If you have any questions, concerns, drop a comment below.
Breaking news, because this just happened a couple hours ago. The Supreme Court ruled, and it is going to allow Trump and his administration to strip the humanitarian parole of 500,000 people from 4 countries. A protection that was in place to keep them from being deported is being stripped, and it is going to result in at least 500,000 people being deported who come from 4 countries. Do you want to guess what one of those countries is? The very first one listed? Cuba. Donald Trump and his administration are revoking the protection of thousands of Cubans. Without that protection, those Cubans do not have legal asylum in the United States. And the Trump administration is going to deport thousands of Cubans and send them back to Cuba. They told you that Barack Obama was Fidel. They told you that Hillary Clinton was Fidel. They told you that Bernie Sanders was Fidel. They told you that Joe Biden was Fidel. They told you that Kamala Harris was Fidel. And you believed them. And now, Donald Trump, who needed your vote to get elected, is going to deport Cubans back to Cuba. Myself and others said this would happen, but I'm not here to say I told you so. I'm not here to celebrate this. My heart is broken. I'm a white boy, but I'm from Florida, and I have spent so much of my life around wonderful Cuban people. I have fallen in love with your food and your music and your culture. And then I watched a political party in my country weaponize very legitimate, real fears that you have and lie to you and tell you that if you didn't vote for them, what happened in Cuba would happen to you here. And you did. And now they're sending some of you back to that place because they only cared about your vote and they don't actually care about you.
We're not even deporting people who are here without documentation. We're taking away people's documentation and then deporting them. Trump loves to throw out these numbers, like 21 million people who are here illegally. I hate that term, by the way. Next, it's going to be 61 million. But if we have so many people who are here without documentation, why do we need to be pulling visas and revoking status for people to meet our ICE quotas? Trump is making people who came here legally illegal.
Did you know that Cuban deportees, especially the ones that are political dissidents and the ones seeking asylum in the U.S., face a significant risk of torture when they come back to Cuba? So when we ask ourselves, when will Latinos for Trump open their eyes, specifically the Cuban ones? The answer is they never will. And there's no better example than the Cuban for Trump than El Funky. He's a Cuban rapper that's currently facing deportation and possible imprisonment in Cuba since his music helped fuel anti-government protests in Cuba. Someone that's been really silent about this case is self-hating Marco Rubio, a Cuban himself. It's a perfect illustration of how much Marco Rubio has changed up during the Trump presidency. Even just a year ago, I'm sure Marco Rubio would have been the loudest person about this case. It's also a crazy example of how much Trump has changed up about Cuban immigration policies. For decades, the U.S. has rolled out the red carpet for Cubans, despite Trump refusing to help these Cubans who have overwhelmingly voted for him. They are still very much pro-Trump, including the rapper El Funky. Talk about fucking around and never finding out.
A pro-Trump Cuban rapper is about to be deported, and he's been told by the administration that he has less than 30 days to pack his bags. The rapper's name is El Funky, and I'll read what he posted on Instagram just recently. He wrote, "I have 30 days to leave the country or I will be deported. I ask all my Cuban brothers who know my anti-communist trajectory and the congressmen of this country that more than ever, I need your support today." This is a really crazy story, so buckle up and remember to add the Midas Touch podcast right now on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. As this article from Politico notes, El Funky fled Cuba to reside in Miami, and although he was previously championed by Cuban politicians Marco Rubio and Mario Diaz-Balart, the two have not spoken publicly on the rapper's behalf, but the possibility of deportation has not changed El Funky's stance on Trump, despite him not being able to legally vote. The rapper has previously stated, "If I could vote, I would have voted for Trump. He's the strongest president when it comes to Cuba." Earlier this month, U.S. immigration authorities denied El Funky's residency application under the 1966 Cuban Adjustment Act. And if he is indeed deported back to Cuba, he faces likely imprisonment there because his music helped fuel the largest anti-government protests in Cuba in decades. And despite that, let me remind you once again, he still supports Trump. Follow Midas Touch now for more news.
Latinos for Trump voted for Obama in 2008. Latinos for Trump voted for Obama in 2012. Latinos for Trump voted for Hillary in 2016. Latinos for Trump voted for Biden in 2020. And this past year, Latinos for Trump finally voted for Trump. Under Obama, we got a health care reform where Latinos would get punished if they did not have health insurance. $2,000 a pop. Instead of health care reform, they could have done immigration reform. But they chose not to. Latinos were just not a priority. The Latinos for Trump voted for Joe Biden. Joe Biden simply opened the borders for everyone, forgot about the people that were already here, welcomed a whole bunch of people in, and rolled out the red carpet, gave them luxury hotels, gave them thousands of dollars per person for food stamps, and didn't do absolutely anything for the people that were here already. So it was time to shock the system. Latinos for Trump voted. They decided no longer are we going to be not heard. I can 1,000% guarantee you the Democratic Party today is really interested in Latinos again. They got to earn our vote. We've been forgotten for too long. Hopefully we get an immigration reform where we vet the people that come in and we get enough people in so that the produce doesn't go to waste, so we can keep America fed. People could have a better life. A safer country, a more prosperous country, more welcoming country. We're at the cusp of that thanks to Latinos for Trump.
How's it going, folks? I just want to share my thoughts about something that an event within the Cuban diaspora and the Cuban community as a whole that is going to lead to some divisions that I think people have not foreseen. Eliezer Marquez Duani, also known as El Funky, is one of three creators of the anti-communist anthem Patria y Vida. He's a Miami-based Cuban rapper, and he is facing deportation after his residency has been denied in the country. This is big. This song was a Grammy-winning track, has been artificially promoted by the CIA through funding into the subsidiary projects to make this song as internationally acknowledged and well known as it is. And Two of the artists that have created that song, the other two, are in Cuba, imprisoned, because of the counter-revolutionary potential that song has. There is, of course, economic instability within the country and people rising up against it. There are many criticisms to be made of the party, but a lot of it has to do with the foreign policy and the sanctions that have been placed on Cuba. And that is exactly why the CIA is investing into the resistance. On a mediatic and economic level, they have gone through funding radio stations that promote and import disinformation and anti-communist propaganda. They have invested even in creating, through the National Endowment of Democracy, a social media whose algorithm actually promotes anti-government posts and content to the Cuban people, to the young generation. That's who they're trying to get to be the vanguard of counter-revolution, of regime change, to put it more clearly, because that's our foreign policy right there. And so that's the precedent. The Mallory Memorandum that states the reasoning behind the sanctions through the Helms-Burton Act that has limited their ability to trade on an international level, or even have credit, which is essential to be able to trade. The reasoning behind it was because Castro was such a popular figure and leader that they needed to terrorize everybody that supported him. It's the same thing that they're saying about the Palestinian people having voted for Hamas, and now they're all animals, now they're all terrorists because they sided with the only force that was contesting the empire. It's that kind of conflation, and that's the kind of policy that the United States engages in, and that's why they've backed this song so much, and that's why it's such a threat to have somebody like El Funky make a track like this. Although it is very catchy, they know what they're doing. So this is interesting because the next most prominent Cuban, actually probably not, because that would be Pitbull, but I'm talking about Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He hasn't said a word about the potential deportation of this rapper. It's almost as if he's in support of it, which would be crazy. The diaspora thinks that they have supported Trump along this way, that they are a sacred demographic that wouldn't be threatened because they've got, Miami's the place to be, and that's where the most Republicans are, and a lot of Trump supporters. He has a golf course that's in Doral, which is a very Venezuelan majority community, but we have some reactionary Venezuelans that have even voted in favor of having ICE within that city through the 287G agreement, even though Venezuelans have been the main targets of ICE deportations to El Salvador, which just goes to show how backwards the exile diaspora of these left-wing governments and countries are. But back to the Cuban people. I mean, like I said, not a monolith, but they tend to see things as a means to an end. In the same way that a lot of them support the sanctions, a lot of them support Trump because he's going to strengthen the sanctions on Cuba. Even though we know that it's going to be making more Cuban people suffer, they are more than willing to take that approach to cause regime change, because they see even military intervention as beneficial to their particular interests. This doesn't mean that they're like capitalists within Cuba, although I'm sure some of them were, that want to make more investments into the country. These are just people that have been fed just imperialist lies and have sided with the United States empire at the cost of the rest of the Cuban people. And considering that that's the way that they think, that they vote against their own interests, that some of them stand against their very own community as they resist empire, then we understand that there might be people that will applaud this deportation. They will see this counter-revolutionary figure coming into Cuba, whether they get arrested or not, as a means to stir counter-revolutionary unrest and uprisings within Cuba. They will support him going back and potentially getting incarcerated because they know that that means that Cuban people will probably rise up, and that will cause even more instability within the island, which will be a moment of crisis for the media apparatus of the United States and potentially the military to exploit and to intervene and to do what they can to assassinate or arrest or do what they need to do to take out the leadership and take control of the country. This is a fucking wet dream for the diaspora, to have a counter-revolutionary figure like that incarcerated and revamp the agitation and desperation of the Cuban people on the island. So I think that there's going to be a big split. I think it's going to be a huge one between the people that are not supportive of Trump whatsoever because they don't want to see this artist incarcerated, because it means that there's a precedent set that Cuban people are not sacred, that they will also be getting deported back to their countries. There have been numerous already. A mother in Tampa who recently had a newborn, she was sent right back and she had to take the kid. I don't even know if she had to take the kid, actually. I'll fact check that. But there have been numerous Cubans that are not exempt from this xenophobia, from this deportation regime. And I think in this case in particular, there's going to be a large portion of the diaspora that is supportive of this policy. And I think that Rubio and Trump are part of that same problem. So we'll see what happens. I certainly think that ending the sanctions, stopping this deportation administration, abolishing ICE, are the only ways in which we can actually secure national sovereignty and benefit for the Cuban people as a whole. We saw how under Obama, although Obama is a war criminal, the sanctions were eased and the economy thrived. It boomed for the Cuban people. And that is something that can be done. And that is something that does not have to be the way that it is, but it is done this way because we don't want to see the Cuban economy thrive. We don't want to see the Cuban Communist Party at its fullest potential, investing in the people and investing in medical innovations as they have, even under the desperation that they're facing, and being able to distribute their innovations on a worldwide stage, on a worldwide scale. So I'll leave it at that. But yeah, free Palestine, end the sanctions and embargo on Cuba, and I hope you have a wonderful...
The Supreme Court just ruled that Trump can deport over 500,000 people. From other countries, from 4 countries. The number 1 country that is going to get deported is from Cuba. We all remember that Cuba overwhelmingly in Florida voted for Trump. But I guess you're all getting deported back to Cuba. FAFO.
Última hora, la Corte Suprema revoca el parol humanitario para más de 500,000 migrantes. El máximo tribunal concedió una solicitud de emergencia presentada por la secretaria de Seguridad Nacional Kristi Noem y puso fin al programa impulsado por Biden que dio permiso a 532,000 personas de Venezuela, Cuba, Haití y Nicaragua para vivir y trabajar temporalmente en los Estados Unidos. ¿Qué quiere decir esto? Pues automáticamente todos los que entraron con parol humanitario tienen con efecto ya revocada esta condición legal y con ellos el permiso de trabajo, licencia de conducir, etc. Ya que la Corte Suprema de este país es la máxima instancia del Poder Judicial y la que tiene la última palabra. Ahora los cubanos específicamente, en mi opinión, no tendrán problemas para legalizarse por la ley de ajuste cubano, ya que su entrada al país fue una entrada legal. Ahora, hasta que llegue el año y un día para su aplicación, deberían aplicar a algún asilo político si tienen un caso legítimo y cuidarse lo máximo posible.
Yo, I'm laughing my ass off right now. Picked this up on the Midas Touch Network recently. I guess this rapper, who goes by the name of El Funky or something like that, dude is Cuban. He advocated for Donald Trump, said Donald Trump's the strongest president or something like that for Cuba. All this kind of stuff, right? You can't make this shit up. Dude just posted on his Instagram recently that he's got 30 days to leave the country or he's being deported. Like, Marco Rubio has spoken about this dude in the past, right? They've talked about him. They like this guy basically because he likes Donald Trump, right? Marco Rubio ain't answering his calls now. This dude is being deported, and on his way out the door, he's saying he would vote for Trump if he were able to. He knew he wasn't a citizen when he was running around saying people should vote for Trump. And now that he's being deported, he's saying he would still vote for Trump. So I hope, and I guess there's rumors, according to Midas Touch, he led a pretty large uprising in Cuba because of his music. So there's a chance when he gets to Cuba, he's going to be incarcerated. I hope he is. Yeah, I do. I hope he's incarcerated because these people, this is what you wanted. Remember, you know how the MAGAs are always like, this is what I voted for. This guy didn't get to vote, but if he were able to, this is what he would have voted for. So I hope he gets incarcerated. I hope the worst for this guy, because while this guy was advocating for Trump, who he knew was going to deport people who look like him, he also knew Donald Trump was going to be the worst president for people of color and any gay or transgender person there is in this country. He knew those things when he was out there saying, I hope you guys vote for Donald Trump strong and all of that. Now this guy, who's supposedly, I guess, maybe getting a lawyer to try to stay in, why would you do that? You wanted the deportations. Now that you're being deported, you should be happily leaving. This is what you wanted. You cannot make this shit up. Like, I'm going to have an extra, I might, you know what, I might have a double shot of something in my drink at the pool that I'm going to in a minute here at this hotel I'm staying in, just in celebration of idiots who fucked around and are now finding out. I mean, I can't be more happy. I can't be more excited sitting here with the freedom of being, you know, doing whatever I want right now while that guy has to worry about being deported. I hate this for the people who are good people who came to this country to just have a better life and are now having to deal with this, but I love it. And understand when I say this, I absolutely love hearing about any type of issue that is bestowed on any of these people who voted for Donald Trump. I have zero sympathy for them. You can tell me anything about them and I will laugh at it because I don't care at all. They get exactly what the hell they deserve. I hope the...
So a while ago I had made a video about Cubans that voted for Trump, and I posted it on multiple platforms, and a lot of Cubans came for me saying, I'm still here, I'm not afraid, I don't regret my vote. But I'm gonna re-ask the question, how are you feeling after what happened this morning? Because I'm sure y'all are scared now. During the election period, a lot of you did this, and even this. Oof, that did not age well, did it? That did not age well. That's got to sting, actually. That's really got to sting. And that should sting because of this. The Supreme Court just passed that Trump can revoke the status of over 500,000 migrants. And the very first one that's listed in this article, Cubans. So I ask yet again, my Miami Cubans, where are you guys at now? Are you hiding? Are you running scared? Because you guys were fooled. You were told that all Democrats were more like Fidel, and you gave him your vote. And now, just like we've all been telling you all along, he doesn't give a shit about you. And he's proving it because you guys are on your way out. So I hope that you guys really, really do enjoy living in Cuba, because you're all headed back. And I guarantee you, the way this man's functioning this time around, he's gonna make sure this shit happens, and it happens quick.
You wanna know how screwed up things are getting? The Supreme Court just gave Donald Trump the green light to start deporting 500,000 people who came here legally under a humanitarian parole program. These are folks from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. Places facing real crisis, guys. They applied, they were vetted, they were approved, they did everything right. And now they're getting kicked out. Why? Because Donald Trump wants to undo anything connected to Biden, even if it means upending lives, ripping families apart, and sending people back to dangerous conditions. It's disgusting. This program let people live here and work for like 2 years legally. They have jobs. They got kids in school. They're paying taxes. But now the message is Doesn't matter. New administration, new rules. Out you go. And what really gets me is the cruelty of it all. This isn't about safety or security. This is about political points. This is about showing off to the base, like, look what we can do with immigrants when we're in charge. And let's not forget, McDonald Trump's Homeland Security Secretary is Kristi Noem. You know, the same woman who bragged about killing a puppy. So, yeah, compassion necessarily isn't the vibe that they're going for here. And at some point, we have to ask, how much is too much cruelty? I mean, Jesus Christ. How many families do we have to tear apart before people say this is enough? So if this pisses you off like it should, don't scroll past. Speak up. Share this. Call it what it is. Cruelty for political gain. And if you live in a swing state, vote like people's lives depend on it, because they literally do.